Money changed hands in the darkest corner of the galaxy. Credits flowed through untraceable channels and names appeared on lists that no government could access. This particular transaction happened in a place where even light seemed afraid to stay too long. Silence watched the hologram flicker to life. The client wore a mask as they always did. Species didn't matter in this business. Only the target mattered and the price. Ambassador David Reed, the masked figure said. Human, recently appointed to the Galactic Council. Silence tilted their head. Humans, the new species. Everyone talked about them like they were special, but Silence had studied the files. Weak bodies, slow reflexes. No natural weapons or armor. They couldn't even see in multiple spectrums like proper species could. Why does a human need to die? Silence asked. Not that it mattered. Curiosity was just a habit. He speaks too well. He makes the other council members listen. Humans are gaining influence they don't deserve. Silence understood. Politics, territory, power. The same reasons that fueled most contracts. The client wanted the humans scared, wanted them to know their place in the galaxy. Payment? Triple the standard rate. That made Silence pause. Triple meant difficult, or it meant the client was desperate. Humans didn't have advanced security. They barely had weapons that could hurt most species. Their diplomatic stations used borrowed technology from older races. Why triple? The client hesitated. There have been complications with human targets. Other operatives have reported unexpected difficulties. Difficulties? Silence had never failed a contract. 217 successful eliminations across 43 different species. What kind of difficulties? Nothing confirmed. Probably just coincidence, but I want my best. That's you. Silence studied the human's file. David Reed, 42 Earth years old, married to Rachel Reed. One offspring, a female child aged 2 years. He worked long hours trying to convince other species that humans deserved respect. Foolish. Respect came from strength, and humans had none. I accept. The hologram died. Credits appeared in Silence's account, the first half of the payment. The rest would come when the humans stopped breathing. Silence left the meeting station and returned to their ship. Time to study the prey. That was what made Silence different from younger assassins. They never rushed. Every target received days of research, sometimes weeks. Learn their patterns. Understand their weaknesses. Plan 3 escape routes before entering. Human biology was disappointing. Internal skeletons made of calcium easily broken. Skin that couldn't stop basic projectiles. Eyes that only saw a narrow band of light. No redundant organs. No regeneration. One good strike and they died. But Silence didn't trust easy targets. Those were the ones that got you killed. The research files showed something interesting. Humans had survived on a death world called Earth. Gravity higher than most comfortable planets. Atmosphere full of oxygen that burned hot and fast. Predators everywhere, and humans had no natural defenses. How did they survive? The answer was in the old files, the ones from when the Galactic Council first contacted Earth. Humans hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They threw rocks with incredible accuracy. They worked in groups, communicating constantly. They adapted to almost any environment. Persistence predators, the xenobiologists called them. Not strong, not fast, but they never stopped coming. Silence dismissed the concern. Those were primitive humans running across plains. Modern humans lived in climate-controlled stations and relied on technology they barely understood. Soft, weak, easy. The trip to Station Haven 7 took 3 days. Silence used the time to memorize the layout. The station hung in orbit around a pleasant world that humans had chosen for diplomatic meetings. Neutral territory, they called it. A place where all species could meet safely. Safety was an illusion. Silence had proven that on 17 different stations. Ambassador Reed kept a predictable schedule. Morning meetings with various council members. Afternoon sessions in private offices. Evening return to his quarters where his wife and daughter waited. Humans were sentimental about family. They wasted time on emotional bonding instead of logical efficiency. That sentimentality would make this easy. Humans hesitated when family was involved. They made mistakes. They became predictable. Silence prepared the tools. A phase blade that could cut through most materials. Toxins calibrated for human biology. A personal cloaking field that bent light and sound. And the natural ability that made Silence's species perfect for this work. They could shift partially out of normal space, becoming impossible to detect. No camera could see them. No sensor could track them. No guard could stop them. The ship docked at Station Haven 7 using false credentials. Security waved them through. Humans trusted their technology too much. They thought scanners and computers could protect them. Silence walked through the diplomatic quarter, noting guard positions and patrol patterns. 16 guards total. Heavy weapons, military training. But they were watching for ships, for bombs, for obvious threats. They weren't watching for silence. Night cycle approached. Humans followed a strict sleep schedule, another weakness. Their bodies demanded unconsciousness for hours at a time. Prey species often had the same vulnerability. Silence found a maintenance shaft 3 levels below the ambassador's quarters. The climb would be easy. Then through the ventilation system, past the bedroom, eliminate the target. Quick, clean, professional. The phase shift activated with a thought. Reality bent around Silence, and they stepped sideways into the space between spaces. The physical world became transparent, ghostly. They could see everything, but nothing could see them. Perfect invisibility. Perfect silence. The hunt began. Silence moved through walls like they were fog. Security systems flickered and died, unable to detect something that wasn't entirely real. Guards stood at their posts, staring at empty corridors. The ambassador's door was locked. Silence walked through it. Inside, darkness and quiet. The living area was neat, organized. Toys scattered in one corner, probably belonging to the offspring. A data pad on the table showed diplomatic reports. The bedroom door was open. Silence could see the ambassador sleeping, his wife beside him. Both vulnerable, both unaware, but training demanded thoroughness. Eliminate all witnesses. Check every room. Silence noticed another door, smaller, decorated with bright colors. The child's room. Protocol said to clear all threats before the primary target. Silence phased through the wall into the child's bedroom, and everything changed. Lily Reed was not supposed to be awake. Human children slept through the night, according to the research. They required 10 to 12 hours of unconsciousness. Simple biology. But Lily sat upright in her bed, clutching a stuffed animal that looked like some earth creature. Her eyes were open wide. Silence froze in the doorway. No, not in the doorway. Between spaces, invisible, undetectable. The child couldn't possibly see anything wrong. She was probably just having a nightmare or needed to use the bathroom. Lily's head turned. Directly toward Silence, monster, she said. Her small finger pointed exactly at Silence's position. Impossible. Silence didn't move. Couldn't move. In 217 contracts, no one had ever detected the phase shift. The technology was ancient, perfected over thousands of years. Wraith species could walk through solid matter, exist in multiple dimensions at once. No sensor in the galaxy could track them, but this tiny human was staring right at them. Lily's face scrunched up. Her mouth opened, she screamed. The sound was incredible, high-pitched, piercing, cutting through dimensions that shouldn't have carried sound. Silence felt the vibrations even in the shifted state, felt something primal and wrong about that noise. Doors crashed open. The ambassador and his wife burst into the room, moving faster than the files said humans could move. The wife, Rachel, reached Lily in 3 running steps, scooping the child into her arms. The ambassador, David, had a weapon in his hand, something small but probably deadly at close range. Where? Rachel demanded, holding Lily close. Where, baby? Where's the monster? Lily kept pointing exactly at Silence. David followed the direction. He couldn't see anything. His eyes were only human eyes, limited and weak. But he trusted his daughter. He aimed his weapon at empty air at the spot where Silence stood between spaces. I don't see anything, he said. But Lily does. Emergency protocol now. Rachel hit a button on her wrist. Alarms screamed throughout the quarters. Red lights flashed. Somewhere in the station, security teams were running this direction. Silence had perhaps 30 seconds before the room filled with armed guards. David kept his weapon trained on Silence's position. He was saying something into a communicator. Northeast corner. My daughter is pointing northeast corner. I don't care if sensors show nothing. She sees something. How? How could this be happening? Silence moved, sliding along the wall. Lily's head tracked the movement. Her finger stayed pointed at Silence like a compass locked on magnetic north. It's moving, Rachel said. Look at her. She's tracking something. Southwest now, David confirmed, adjusting his aim. Converging teams, target is mobile, southwest corner of the nursery. This was wrong. This was impossible. Children weren't trained. They didn't have enhanced senses. They were just small humans, even weaker than the adults, useless in any practical sense. But Lily was watching Silence move like she could see through dimensions. Footsteps pounded in the corridor. Heavy boots, military cadence. The security teams were arriving faster than predicted. Silence made a decision. Retreat, regroup. This contract was compromised, but there would be other opportunities. Professionals knew when to withdraw. The ventilation shaft. 3 meters up, too high for humans to reach quickly. Silence jumped, phasing through the wall, entering the duct system. Behind them, the door exploded inward. Guards flooded the room, weapons ready. They wore heavy armor and carried scanners that swept the space in multiple spectrums, nothing on thermal, nothing on motion, quantum. Sensors are clean. Psionic wards are intact. David was still watching his daughter. "Lily, is it still here?" Lily looked around the room. Her face was wet with tears, but she was calming down. She pointed at the ventilation grate. "Gone," she said. "Monster gone." "Check the vents," David ordered. 2 guards moved to the wall. One climbed on the other's shoulders, pulling the grate free. They shone lights into the darkness. Silence was already 50 meters away, moving through the shaft system at full speed. But even from that distance, they heard the conversation. "Sir, the grate was locked from inside. Whatever was here would have needed to phase through solid matter." "Then we're dealing with a wraith," Rachel said. She knew her species. Most humans didn't bother learning about other races, but she had done her research. "Assassins. We need to contact the council immediately." "Already done," David replied. "Station security is locking down all exits. They won't get far." Silence would have laughed if their species could laugh. Station security was designed by committee, with input from a dozen different races. Each system was advanced, but none of them talked to each other properly. There were gaps. There were always gaps. The maintenance shaft led to a service corridor. Silence dropped through, landing silently in the empty passage. The phase shift dropped and they became solid again. Normal space, normal visibility. Running footsteps approached from the left. Silence went right, moving quickly but not fast enough to trigger motion sensors. Just another maintenance worker, if anyone bothered to look. The docking bay was 3 levels down. The ship was ready. Pre-flight sequence already running. Emergency departure programmed into the autopilot. Always have an escape plan. That was rule number 1. Silence reached the bay access corridor. The door was sealed, red lights flashing. Lockdown protocol. They would need to override it, which meant time, which meant exposure. A security team rounded the corner behind them. 4 guards, weapons drawn. "Stop! Hands where we can see them!" Silence grabbed the phase blade. The weapon hummed to life, vibrating between dimensions. They could cut through the door in 5 seconds. But the guards would fire in 2. The calculation was simple. Proceed and possibly die. Surrender and definitely die. Silence spun, blade ready. The guards opened fire. Plasma rounds burned through the air. Silence phased, letting most of the shots pass through their shifted form. But one guard had a quantum disruptor. The weapon was designed specifically for hunting wraiths. The blast caught Silence in the shoulder, forcing them partially back into normal space. Pain was new. Silence had been wounded before, but not like this. The quantum disruptor had torn through layers of reality, damaging the spaces between spaces. They slashed at the door with the blade. The metal screamed and split. Smoke and sparks filled the corridor. More guards were coming. Silence could hear them. The door fell open. The docking bay was beyond, and the ship and escape. Silence staggered through, bleeding from wounds that existed in multiple dimensions at once. The ship's ramp was down. Safety was close. Behind them, guards poured into the bay. Weapons charged. Targeting lasers painted Silence's back. The ship lifted before Silence reached it. The autopilot had activated the emergency departure sequence. Smart programming. It knew the primary operator was in danger and acted accordingly. Silence jumped. The ramp was 2 meters off the ground now. Their injured shoulder made the leap awkward, but wraith species were good at jumping. They caught the edge of the ramp, pulling themselves up as the ship accelerated toward the bay doors. Plasma fire chased them. One shot hit the ship's shield. Another melted a chunk of the ramp. Then they were through into space, into the darkness between stars. Safe. Silence collapsed on the deck of the ship, breathing hard. Blood that existed in multiple states of reality pooled beneath them. They had failed. For the first time in their career, they had failed. A human child had defeated them with nothing but a pointed finger and a scream. In the medical bay, Silence treated the wound and tried to understand what had happened. No species should be able to detect a phased wraith. It defied every scientific principle. The child shouldn't have even known to look for threats. 2 years old. Barely able to speak. Not trained, not enhanced, not anything special, just human. And somehow that had been enough. Dr. Omar Khalid had seen many strange things in his career as humanity's chief security officer. But a toddler detecting an invisible assassin was definitely new. He stood in the Reed family quarters examining the room where it had happened. Forensics teams had already swept the space. They found nothing useful. Trace amounts of exotic particles in the ventilation shaft, quantum disturbances near the doorway, and one plasma burn on the floor where a guard's weapon had misfired. But the important evidence was sitting on a couch, drinking juice from a plastic cup. Lily Reed looked at Omar with big, curious eyes. She seemed completely fine now, laughing at something her mother said. No trauma, no fear. Like pointing out interdimensional assassins was just another part of her day. Can I talk to her? Omar asked. Rachel nodded. She won't understand complex questions. She's only 2. Omar knelt down to Lily's level. Hi, Lily. I'm Omar. Can you tell me about the monster? Lily tilted her head. Monster was scary. What did the monster look like? Like shadows. Like when Daddy's light is broken. She pointed at a lamp in the corner. Omar filed that away. Like shadows. Like broken light. That matched the description of phase-shifted beings. Reality bending around them. Light not reflecting properly. How did you know the monster was there? Lily thought about this, her face serious. It felt wrong. Like when food is yucky. Wrong, 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 Rachel translated. She means instinct. Something felt off to her. Did you see it with your eyes? Lily shook her head, felt it. In here. She patted her chest, approximately where a human heart would be. Omar sat back. Felt it, not saw it. Not heard it. Felt it. Ambassador Reed joined them. He looked tired, which was reasonable after someone tried to kill him. Have you found anything? More than I expected, Omar said. Your daughter has good instincts. That's what saved us. I trained for threats, Rachel trained for threats. But we didn't see anything, Lily did. She knew exactly where it was, tracked it across the room. David paused. That's not normal, is it? I don't know yet. I need to check something. Omar spent the next week digging through security reports from every human colony and station. He had access to council databases too, but he started with human records. Sometimes the best information was the stuff nobody thought was important. He found 17 incidents in the past year alone. Station Alpha 3, security guard's daughter. Age 4, screamed and pointed at an empty corridor. 5 minutes later, a bomb was discovered hidden in that exact spot. Colony New Perth. Twin boys, age 3, refused to enter a building. They said it felt bad. Structural engineers found critical support beams were about to fail. Transport ship Meridian. A 5-year-old girl kept saying there was something wrong with one of the passengers. That passenger was later discovered to be a wanted criminal in disguise. The pattern was clear. Human children detected threats that adults missed. And not just sometimes, regularly, consistently. Omar brought his findings to the council. Most members were skeptical. Children are unreliable, said Ambassador Trill, a Centauran with 4 eyes. They imagine things. They have nightmares. You can't base security protocols on childish fears. This isn't imagination, Omar replied. These are documented cases with verified outcomes. The children were right. Coincidence, Trill insisted. 17 times? That's not coincidence. That's pattern. The council meeting devolved into argument. Some species believed Omar. Most didn't. Humans were new to the galaxy and their claims were often dismissed as primitive superstition. But Ambassador Reed had allies. Species who had worked with humans and learned to respect them. They asked for a formal investigation. The research took 3 months. Xenobiologists, psychologists, and physicists from a dozen species studied human children. They ran tests. They collected data. They tried to understand how something so small and weak could detect threats that advanced technology missed. The answer, when it came, was simple. Evolution. Dr. Sarah Kim, A human evolutionary biologist presented the findings. Humans evolved as persistence predators on a death world. Earth was full of things that wanted to eat us. We had no claws, no venom, no armor. We survived because we were smart and aware. She pulled up images of Earth's predators. Lions, bears, snakes, spiders. Our ancestors needed to spot danger fast. We developed incredible pattern recognition. We notice when things are wrong, when environments change, when threats are near. It's in our genes, but children? Trill asked. Why children specifically? Because children haven't learned to ignore their instincts yet, Sarah explained. Adults rationalize. We tell ourselves that strange noises are just wind, that shadows are just tricks of light. We override our natural responses with logic. Children don't do that. They trust what they feel. The research backed her up. Human children showed heightened responses to changes in air pressure, electromagnetic fields, and even quantum fluctuations. Their brains processed environmental data that adults filtered out as noise. Effectively, human children were natural threat detectors, better than most sensors because they integrated thousands of subtle inputs simultaneously. The council was stunned. Some members were impressed. Others were concerned. If human children could detect their security measures, what else could humans perceive? Omar presented his final report. We should establish a program, train adults to trust children's warnings, develop protocols around these abilities. This could save lives. Or it could be exploited, another council member warned. If humans can detect threats, they could also be threats. Perhaps we should limit human access to sensitive areas. The debate raged for weeks. Political lines were drawn. Some species supported humanity's unique abilities. Others feared them. But while politicians argued, something else was happening. The Shade Collective was watching. Silence had reported the failure. The child who could see through dimensions. At first, the collective thought it was just one anomaly. One strange human in a galaxy of normal ones. Then other reports came in. Different assassins. Different targets. Same result. Human children were compromising missions. An operative in the Stealth Corps reported a similar incident. A human boy, age 6, had pointed directly at them while they were using adaptive camouflage. The child had said, "I can see you," to someone who was scientifically invisible. A poisoner had been caught because a toddler smelled the toxin in food and refused to let adults eat it. The poison was odorless to every known species, except apparently to human children. A saboteur had been discovered when a child heard frequencies that their audio equipment made. Frequencies that were supposed to be below hearing range for biological organisms. The pattern was undeniable. The collective held an emergency meeting. Silence attended. Still injured from the failed Reed contract, the leaders of the guild sat in shadow, their forms hidden. Humanity is a problem, the first speaker declared. Their young can detect us. They compromise our operations. They threaten centuries of tradition. Do we eliminate them? Someone asked. A plague? A war? The council would intervene, another voice said. Humans have allies now. We can't risk open conflict, Silence spoke up. We could adapt. Study them. Learn how they do it. Turn their abilities against them. The first speaker considered this. You failed your contract. Why should we listen to you? Because I'm the only one here who has looked a human child in the eyes and survived, Silence replied. I know what we're up against. It's not technology. It's not training. It's evolution. It's in their blood. You can't fight that with normal methods, then what do you suggest? Silence thought about Lily Reed, the way she had pointed, the certainty in her small voice, the trust her parents had shown. We don't fight it. We respect it. Humans have earned that. The suggestion was met with silence, then the first speaker laughed. Respect? For prey? But even as the words were spoken, everyone in the room knew something had changed. Prey didn't detect invisible assassins. Prey didn't survive on death worlds. Prey didn't earn seats on the Galactic Council. Maybe humans were never prey at all. Maybe everyone had just assumed they were. The decision came from the highest levels of the Shade Collective. They needed to know for certain. One child detecting one assassin could be luck. Multiple incidents could be coincidence. But to truly understand the threat, they needed controlled data. They needed to test human children. 8 operatives were selected. Each was an expert in stealth. Each used different methods. Optical camouflage, phase shifting, psionic veiling, molecular dispersion. Between them, they represented every known form of concealment in the galaxy. The targets were chosen carefully. Human settlements scattered across the galaxy. Places where failure wouldn't start a war, but success would provide clear answers. Silence was chosen to lead the operation. Despite the failed contract, or perhaps because of it, the collective recognized their experience. They knew humans now. They had been inside human homes, seen human families, understood human behavior. "This is observation only," the mission briefing stated. "No terminations. No violence. Approach a human child, see if they detect you. Record the results. Extract immediately. Simple, clean, scientific." It didn't go according to plan. Colony New Vancouver was the first test site. Operative Whisper took the assignment. They used adaptive camouflage, technology that analyzed surroundings and matched them perfectly. To any observer, Whisper was invisible. To any scanner, they didn't exist. The target was a playground during midday cycle. Human children ran and played under supervision. Whisper entered the area, moving slowly, testing how close they could get. They made it 3 meters before a little boy stopped playing and stared directly at them. "There's someone there," the boy said, pointing. "Where, sweetie?" an adult asked. "Right there. They're hiding." "But I can see them," the adult looked. Saw nothing, but called security anyway because humans had learned to trust their children. Whisper retreated. Mission compromised in under 5 minutes. The second test went no better. Operative Shadow tried approaching a human home at night. They used phase technology, slipping between dimensions like Silence had, a foolproof method. The household's daughter, age 4, woke up screaming before Shadow even entered her room. She told her parents someone was walking wrong outside her window. Security arrived within minutes. Shadow barely escaped. The third operative, Echo, attempted to use psionic concealment. They wrapped their mind in layers of ignore me psychic suggestions. Most species would look right at them and forget they existed. A human child on transport ship Discovery walked up to Echo in a crowded corridor and asked, "Why are you trying to hide?" The fourth operative didn't even get close. A group of children playing near a human diplomatic outpost started pointing and laughing at the invisible person who thinks we can't see them. 8 tests. 8 failures. The Shade Collective reconvened. The evidence was impossible to deny now. Human children could detect any form of stealth. They saw through camouflage, sensed phase shifts, ignored psionic suggestions, and tracked movement that left no physical trace. "This is a crisis," the second speaker declared. "If human children can detect us, our entire profession is compromised. Every contract involving humans becomes impossible." "Not impossible," Silence corrected. "Just difficult. We've faced difficult targets before. Difficult targets don't have empire-wide countermeasures. What happens when humans station children at every security checkpoint? When they turn their young into living sensors?" That question hung in the air, and it was already happening. Admiral Helen Foster of the Human Defense Fleet had seen the test results from the collective's observations. Security flagged every incident. Someone was testing human children systematically. Someone wanted to understand their abilities, which meant someone feared them. "If they fear it, we weaponize it," she told her staff. The Sentinel program launched within a month. Human families serving on military vessels and stations were asked to volunteer their children for a special program. Not as soldiers. Children would never be soldiers. But as early warning systems, the response was overwhelming. Hundreds of families volunteered. The program was simple. Children would live normal lives, attend normal schools, play normal games. But they would also be taught to recognize their feelings when something was wrong. They would learn to trust their instincts and report them immediately. Each military installation assigned families with young children to rotating quarters throughout the facility. The children became a distributed sensor network. Detecting threats that technology missed, the first successful intervention happened on station. Guardian 7, a 5-year-old, named Peter, was playing in a corridor when he stopped. Suddenly, "Something's wrong," he told his mother. "What's wrong, baby?" "That wall. It feels bad," security was called. Scanners showed nothing unusual, but they checked anyway, because protocols had changed. Behind the wall panel, they found an explosive device. Molecular charge, undetectable to conventional sensors. It would have destroyed half the station. The bomber was caught trying to flee. Under interrogation, they revealed they were testing human defenses, looking for weaknesses. They found none. More incidents followed. Children detecting concealed weapons, identifying infiltrators, sensing dangerous malfunctions before they occurred. The Sentinel program proved its worth again and again. Other species took notice. Some were impressed. Some were alarmed. Ambassador Trill called for a special council session. We need to discuss human capabilities. These children represent an intelligence advantage that could destabilize the balance of power. They're children, Ambassador Reed replied. Not weapons. Not tools. Just children who happen to be good at spotting danger. That's exactly the problem. They're too good at it. The debate grew heated. Some council members wanted restrictions on human settlements near sensitive areas. Others wanted humans to share their technology, even though it wasn't technology at all. A few suggested that human children should be studied more invasively, to understand the biological mechanisms. That's when Rachel Reed spoke up. She rarely attended council sessions, preferring to focus on her family, but this was personal. You want to study our children? Experiment on them? They're not specimens. They're people. But surely you understand the scientific value, a Centauran scientist began. I understand that my daughter saved her father's life by being exactly what she is, a child with good instincts. That's not something you can dissect and replicate. Omar backed her up with data. We've analyzed hundreds of cases. Human children don't have special organs or enhanced biology. They just pay attention differently than adults. They notice small changes in their environment that others filter out. Then why can't adults do the same thing? Someone asked. We can, Omar admitted, but we have to relearn it. We have to consciously override years of social conditioning that tells us to ignore our gut feelings. Children haven't learned to doubt themselves yet. Sarah Kim added her research. Every species in this council has survival instincts, but most of you evolved in relatively stable environments. Your homeworlds were safe, your threats were obvious. Earth was different. Everything on Earth was trying to kill everything else. Humans developed paranoid awareness because paranoid humans survived to have children. She showed comparative data. Human children reacted to threats faster than any other species young. Not because they were smarter, but because they were wired to assume danger until proven safe. It's not an advantage, Sarah explained. It's a burden. Human children are anxious by nature. They see monsters and shadows because their ancestors had to. The monsters were real. That shifted the conversation. Suddenly, human abilities weren't seen as threatening advantages. They were seen as adaptations to a harsh environment. Other species had their own adaptations. Some had armor. Some had venom. Humans had anxiety and pattern recognition. The council voted. No restrictions on human settlements. No mandatory studies of human children. But also, official recognition that human capabilities were legitimate defensive measures, not aggressive tools. It was a diplomatic victory for humanity, but it didn't solve the core problem. The Shade Collective was still out there. They had failed their tests, but they weren't giving up. Silence knew that better than anyone. Back on their ship, healing from wounds that still existed in multiple dimensions, Silence made a choice. The collective wanted humans eliminated or controlled. They saw children as obstacles to business. They thought fear and violence were the answers. But Silence had learned something from Lily Reed and all the other children who had detected assassins. Humans protected their young absolutely. Threaten a human child and you created enemies who would never stop hunting you. The collective was making a mistake. A fatal one. Silence decided to change sides. If the collective wanted a war with humanity, they could fight it without Silence. Because Silence had spent enough time studying humans to know one crucial truth. Humans didn't give up. Humans didn't surrender, and humans who were protecting their children would fight with a ferocity that no assassin could match. It was time to warn Ambassador Reed that more attacks were coming, and maybe, just maybe, it was time for the galaxy's most feared assassin to try something new, being a protector instead of a threat. Getting back into Station Haven 7 was easier than leaving. Security had flagged Silence's ship, of course. They had biometric markers, quantum signatures, everything needed to track a Wraith assassin. But the Shade Collective had resources. A new identity. A different ship forged credentials that showed Silence as a merchant trader. Simple cargo hauler, nothing suspicious. The hard part was deciding to come back at all. 217 successful contracts. A reputation built over decades. And now Silence was about to throw it all away to warn the target they had once tried to kill. The ship docked in the commercial sector. Security scanned it thoroughly, found nothing illegal. Silence walked through customs carrying a data chip hidden in layers of quantum encryption. On that chip was everything. Collective membership lists, contract records, communication protocols. Enough information to dismantle the entire Assassin's Guild. But first they had to deliver the warning without getting killed. Ambassador Reed's office was in the diplomatic tower. Heavily guarded. Multiple checkpoints. Scanning systems that could detect weapons, explosives, and concealed technology. Silence walked through it all clean. No weapons, no tools. Just information and a desperate need to deliver it before the next wave of assassins arrived. The receptionist was human, a young woman with tired eyes. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I have information about an imminent threat to Ambassador Reed's life." That got her attention. "Security needs to verify any threat warnings." "Please wait here." 3 guards arrived within minutes. They escorted Silence to a scanning chamber and ran every test in their system. Biological analysis, psionic evaluation, quantum resonance check. Looking for deception, for hidden weapons, for any sign this was a trap. The scans came back mostly clean. Some anomalies from Silence's wraith biology, but nothing immediately dangerous. "What's this threat?" the lead guard asked. "I need to speak directly to Ambassador Reed. What I know is sensitive. Classified beyond your security clearance." The guard didn't like that answer. "We don't let random merchants meet with council ambassadors based on vague warnings." "Then scan the data chip I'm carrying. You'll see classified shade collective codes. That should be enough to get his attention." The guard took the chip, inserted it into a scanner. The machine couldn't decrypt the contents, but it recognized the encryption signature. Shade collective protocols were well known to intelligence agencies. The guard's expression changed. "Wait here." 20 minutes later, Silence sat across from Ambassador David Reed in a secure conference room. The walls were lined with sensors. 4 guards stood at attention, weapons ready. Omar Khalid stood beside Reed, watching Silence with professional suspicion. Reed looked older than his files suggested. Stress lines around his eyes. Gray hair appearing where it hadn't been during Silence's first visit. Being an assassination target aged people quickly. "You're the one who broke into my home," Reed said. "Not a question." "Yes." "You tried to kill me." "Yes." "Why should I listen to anything you have to say?" Silence pulled out the encrypted data chip and placed it on the table. "Because I'm here to stop the next attempt. And the 10 attempts after that. The Shade Collective has declared humans a priority threat. They're planning systematic elimination of key human leadership." Omar picked up the chip carefully. "This contains what exactly?" "Everything. Operative identities, communication codes, contract lists, client records. Enough to expose the entire organization." "Why?" Reed asked. "Why betray your own people?" "Because your daughter saw me when I was supposed to be invisible. Because human children keep detecting assassins that no technology can track. Because the collective is afraid of what that means and fear makes organizations do stupid things." Omar was already connecting the chip to a secure terminal, running decryption programs. "This is going to take time to verify. You don't have time. There's a coordinated strike being planned. Multiple operatives. Multiple targets. They're going to hit human leadership across the galaxy simultaneously. Prove that humans can't protect themselves. Prove that your children's abilities aren't enough." "When?" Reed demanded. 5 days. Maybe 6. The collective is still organizing, still recruiting operatives willing to take contracts despite the risk. "Despite the risk," Reed repeated. "You mean despite the fact that human children can see them coming? Your children are good at spotting threats. But they're not everywhere, and not every child has the same level of ability. The collective is studying the patterns, finding gaps in coverage." That made Omar look up from the terminal. They're targeting areas with fewer children. Military vessels on deep space patrol. Research stations with aging populations. Diplomatic outposts where families are rare. Places where your early warning system doesn't exist. Reed stood pacing. "We need to alert those stations immediately." "Omar, get me a list of every human facility with limited child presence." "Already compiling it," Omar replied. "But even if we warn them, we can't defend everywhere at once. We don't have the resources." "Then we need allies," Reed said. "Other council species. Coordinated defense. This isn't just about humans anymore. If the collective is operating openly, they're a threat to everyone." Silence shook their head. "The collective isn't operating openly. They never do. Each contract appears independent. Random violence, bad luck, By the time anyone proves coordination, half your leadership will be dead. Then we prove it now, Omar said. The decryption program had finished its first pass. These files are legitimate. I'm seeing names I recognize from intelligence reports. Operations that were never solved. This is real. Reed turned back to silence. What do you want in exchange for this information? Nothing. Everyone wants something. I want the collective to fail. I want humans to survive, because if they can kill you, they can kill anyone. Fear makes people hire assassins. If assassins can kill council members, the galaxy descends into chaos. It was partially true, but there was more to it. Something Silence was still trying to understand. Lily Reed had pointed at them and called them a monster. She was right. Silence was a monster. 217 dead beings prove that. But maybe monsters could change. Reed studied Silence for a long moment. I'm going to trust you. Not because I want to, because I have to. Omar, coordinate with security. I want protection details on every vulnerable facility, and I want this data analyzed completely. Find out who hired these contracts. The next hours were chaos. Omar's team worked through the data chip, compiling names and operations. Reed contacted other council members, convincing them the threat was real. Some believed him immediately. Others required proof. The proof came faster than expected. Station Research 3, a human scientific outpost studying asteroid mining techniques. Population of 37, all adults, all scientists. No children, no sentinel warnings. A collective operative infiltrated during night cycle and sabotaged the life support system. If not for a maintenance tech who happened to be awake, everyone would have died. The operative was caught. Under interrogation, they confirmed everything Silence had said. The collective was targeting humans systematically. That changed everything. Council members who had been skeptical suddenly took the threat seriously. Resources were allocated. Security was enhanced, and species that had dismissed human abilities as primitive began to see their value. But 5 days was not much time. And the collective had dozens of operatives ready to strike. Reed called an emergency meeting. His staff, security chiefs, military advisors, and Silence, planning defense against an organization that specialized in defeating defenses. We can't protect everyone, Admiral Foster said via secure transmission. We can harden key facilities, but the collective will just target softer locations. We're playing defense against attackers who can choose any target. Then we turn it around, Silence suggested. Stop defending. Start hunting. Everyone looked at the assassin. You have their codes, their communication protocols. Use them. Send false information. Make the collective think their operatives are compromised. Create paranoia. Assassins work alone because they don't trust anyone. Use that against them. Omar nodded slowly. Psychological warfare. Make them doubt their own intelligence. More than that, Silence continued. I know how they think. I know their training. Help me identify the operatives likely to take these contracts. We find them before they strike. Can we trust you? Admiral Foster asked. You were one of them. You could be feeding us false information. I could be, Silence admitted. But I gave you everything. All my secrets. All my contacts. If I wanted humans dead, I could have just stayed quiet and let the contracts proceed. Reed made a decision. We use every advantage we have. That includes Silence's knowledge. Omar, work with them. Find these assassins before they reach their targets. The planning session lasted 6 hours. They identified 17 likely targets, matched them with probable operatives, and planned interception strategies. But there was one more problem. They'll come for you specifically, Silence told Reed. The original contract is still active. Whoever hired me will hire someone else. Your family is the highest value target. My family is in the most secure facility on this station, Reed replied. Rachel and Lily are surrounded by guards. Guards didn't stop me, but Lily did. Silence had no argument for that. The child had been more effective than any security system. I want to meet her, Silence said suddenly. Your daughter. I want to apologize for frightening her. Reed's expression hardened. You want to get close to my family? I want her to know that monsters can change. That pointing at threats is important. That she was brave. It was a strange request. Reed knew it. Omar knew it. Everyone in the room knew it. But Reed had spent weeks learning to trust strange things. Learning to trust his daughter's instincts. learning that the galaxy was more complicated than politics and power. "I'll ask her," Reed said finally. "But if she says no, if she's afraid, you stay away." "Understood?" "Understood." The meeting ended. Plans were set in motion. Security teams deployed. Intelligence agencies fed false information into collective channels. And Silence waited to learn if a 2-year-old human would forgive the monster who had crept into her room. The galaxy was changing. Humans were forcing it to change. And somehow an assassin who had killed for centuries was changing with it. Lily Reed did not remember the monster clearly. She was 2 years old, and her memories were simple things. Happy moments with her parents, playing with toys, the taste of sweet things. The monster was already fading into the background noise of childhood. But when her father asked if she wanted to meet the person who scared you, she knew exactly who he meant. The shadow person? Yes, baby. They want to say sorry. Lily thought about this seriously. Adults apologized when they did wrong things. When they broke toys or raised their voices or forgot promises. If the shadow person wanted to apologize, that meant they knew they had been bad. "Okay," she said. The meeting happened in the family's living quarters, with Rachel and David both present. Guards waited outside, weapons ready. Omar monitored from a security station. Everyone was ready for this to go wrong. Silence entered the room in solid form, fully visible. No phase shifts, no tricks. Just a wraith in simple clothing, moving carefully like they were afraid of breaking something. They knelt down to Lily's level. "Hello, Lily. I'm Silence." Lily studied them with the intense focus that children have. She saw the edges of their form blur slightly, like they were still half-existing somewhere else. She saw their eyes, which had too many colors in them. She saw the way they moved, too smooth, too precise. "You're the monster," she said. "Yes, I was the monster. I came to hurt your father. I'm sorry I scared you. You were bad. Yes, very bad. Are you still bad?" That question hit harder than any weapon. Silence had spent days thinking about it. Were they still bad? Could someone stop being a monster just by deciding to change? "I'm trying not to be," Silence answered honestly. "I'm trying to help instead of hurt. But I've done many bad things. I can't change that." Lily nodded like this made perfect sense to her. "My daddy says sorry is important. You say sorry, you try to be better." "Your father is very wise. He's the best daddy," Lily agreed. Then with the directness of children, she asked, "Why did you want to hurt him?" "Because someone paid me to. It was my job to hurt people." "That's a bad job." "Yes, it is. You should get a better job." Silence felt something strange in their chest. Laughter maybe, or pain. It was hard to tell the difference. "You're right. I should," Rachel spoke up. "Lily, do you feel safe with Silence here?" Lily looked at the wraith again. That serious evaluation that children do. "They're not trying to hurt us now. I can tell." "How can you tell?" "They feel different. Before they felt wrong like spoiled food. Now they just feel sad." Omar's voice came through the comm system. "Ambassador, the psychological profile is consistent with genuine remorse. Body language, biometric readings, everything checks out. They're not faking this." But Reed was watching his daughter, not the readouts. She had been right about threats before. If she said Silence felt safe now, he would trust that. "Lily, would you draw Silence a picture? Like you draw for Grandma and Grandpa?" Lily's face lit up. She loved drawing. She ran to her table and grabbed paper and crayons, already deciding what to make. While she worked, Reed and Silence talked quietly. "Thank you for the information. We've already intercepted 3 operatives based on your data." "Good. But there are more coming. The collective doesn't give up easily. Neither do we. Humans are persistent. It's our best trait. I've noticed." Rachel brought them tea, a human custom. Silence accepted it awkwardly. They had never shared a peaceful meal with targets before. "What will you do after this?" Rachel asked. "When the collective is dealt with?" "I don't know. Find a new job, apparently." "Your daughter's recommendation?" "She's a smart girl. She sees things clearly. All human children do." Silence paused. "That's going to change the galaxy, you know." "Your children. They make traditional security obsolete. Alliances will shift. New doctrines will emerge. All because a few young humans can point at monsters." "Is that what you think this is about? Power dynamics?" "Isn't everything?" Reed shook his head. "This is about protecting people. My daughter pointed at you not because she wanted power, because she was scared, because you were a threat. That's not a weapon. That's just a child being a child. A child who changed everything, Silence replied. The collective is falling apart. Operatives are deserting. Clients are canceling contracts. All because one 2-year-old said monster and pointed. The station shook slightly. Alarms blared for a moment, then silenced. Omar's voice came through urgent and fast. We have multiple breaches. They're here. They're attacking now. The coordinated strike had begun. Reed grabbed Rachel and Lily. Safe room now. Guards flooded the corridor. Silence stood, every instinct saying to run, to hide, to save themselves. But they stayed. I can help. I know how they think. Omar appeared in the doorway. Then prove it. We have 5 confirmed infiltrators. Standard defensive protocols aren't working. They're using techniques you probably taught them. Silence nodded. Where are they? 3 in the lower levels. 2 moving toward the diplomatic quarters. We've evacuated most civilians, but some families wouldn't leave their homes. The families with children? Yes, they said their kids would warn them if danger got close. Silence understood immediately. The human parents trusted their children absolutely. More than security systems. More than armed guards. That trust was going to either save them or kill them. Take me to the diplomatic quarters. That's where the attack will focus. They ran through corridors filled with guards taking defensive positions. Silence pointed out likely infiltration routes, suggested scanning patterns that might detect phase-shifted beings. The first assassin appeared in a junction corridor. They used optical camouflage, nearly invisible to standard sensors. But a small boy from one of the diplomatic families stood in the corridor and pointed directly at the threat. There! Right there! Guards opened fire. The assassin tried to dodge but was caught in crossfire, down in seconds. The second assassin tried a different approach, molecular dispersion, spreading their form thin across a wide area. Impossible to target, impossible to stop. A girl of maybe 5 years old walked out of her family's quarters, looked directly at the dispersed molecules and said, "That's gross." Stop being gross. The assassin reformed, startled by detection. Guards were waiting. The pattern repeated throughout the station. Every assassin who approached areas with children was detected before they could strike. Every adult who trusted their children's warnings survived. But 2 assassins had found areas with no children. Service corridors, maintenance sections, places where families didn't live. Silence tracked them using knowledge of collective tactics. They'll try to hit infrastructure. Cut life support. Cause panic. Make everyone vulnerable. Omar coordinated teams to the likely targets. They found one assassin trying to sabotage the environmental controls. The other was heading for the main reactor. I'll take the reactor, Silence said. You'll be alone down there. I know their tactics. I'll be fine. It was a lie. Silence probably wouldn't be fine. But someone had to stop the reactor sabotage, and they were the most qualified. The reactor level was dark and warm. Cooling systems hummed. Energy conduits glowed with contained power. Silence moved through it like a ghost, using their natural abilities to phase partially out of reality. The other assassin was there. Silence recognized the signature. Whisper, one of the operatives who had tested human children. Skilled, ruthless, efficient. You betrayed us, Whisper said without turning around. They had detected Silence the same way Silence had detected them. Professional recognition, I changed sides. Why? For humans? They're nothing, weak, short-lived, irrelevant. Their children saw through your camouflage. Does that sound irrelevant? Whisper placed an explosive device on the reactor core. This will kill thousands. Humans and others. You can't stop me without causing the device to detonate. I know. That's why I'm not stopping you. Whisper turned, confused. Silence phased completely out of normal space, becoming fully interdimensional. Then they grabbed Whisper and pulled them into the same state. Both assassins existed between realities now, unable to interact with normal matter, including the explosive device. What are you doing? Whisper demanded, saving everyone, including you. They fought in the space between spaces. Phase blades clashed. Reality bent around them. It was a battle that would be invisible to normal observers. 2 beings fighting in dimensions that most species couldn't perceive. But somewhere in the station, a child felt it. Lily Reed sat in the safe room with her parents and suddenly looked up. Something's happening. Down below, the shadow person is fighting another shadow person. Omar received the report. How can she possibly know that? I don't know, Reed admitted. But she hasn't been wrong yet. Guards rushed to the reactor level. They found nothing visible, but sensors showed quantum fluctuations consistent with phase combat. The fight lasted 3 minutes. Silence was skilled, but Whisper was younger, faster. They drove Silence back toward the reactor, phase blade cutting through dimensional layers. Then something unexpected happened. Lily's voice came through the station's emergency broadcast system. She had grabbed a microphone in the safe room and no one had stopped her because they were too surprised. "Shadow person. The other shadow is trying to trick you. Move left." Silence moved left on pure instinct. Whisper's blade missed by centimeters. "Now duck." Silence ducked. A guard's weapon fired through normal space, the shot passing harmlessly through Silence's phased form, but disrupting Whisper's position. "Now stop them." Silence drove their blade forward. It connected. Whisper screamed, a sound that echoed across dimensions and fell back into normal space. Guards surrounded them immediately. Silence phased back to normal reality, exhausted. Multiple wounds leaked blood that existed in several states at once. The explosive device was still attached to the reactor. But with Whisper captured, the detonation codes were extracted quickly. The device was safely removed. Crisis averted. Silence collapsed against the reactor wall, too tired to stand. Omar arrived with medical teams. "You saved the station," Omar said. "Your child saved me," Silence replied. "She warned me. I don't know how, but she knew exactly what was happening." "Human children," Omar said with a smile. "They're full of surprises." The collective's coordinated strike had failed completely. Every operative either captured or dead. The organization was exposed, its secrets revealed, its power broken. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council passed new laws. The Reed Doctrine, they called it. Assassination of any species young was declared a capital crime across all council space. The protection of children became a universal priority. Human children were recognized officially as legitimate defensive assets, not weapons, not tools, just children whose natural abilities happened to be useful. 3 weeks later, Silence stood in Ambassador Reed's office, healed from their wounds. They carried paperwork, official council documents. "I'm applying for asylum," Silence said. "And for a job." "What kind of job?" Reed asked. "Protection. Security consulting. Teaching people how assassins think so they can defend against them. I've spent my life learning how to kill. Maybe I can spend the rest of it teaching people how to stay alive." Reed reviewed the application. "The council will need to approve this. Former assassins don't usually get security clearances." "I know, but I have a reference." "Oh? Who?" "Your daughter." She drew me a picture. Silence pulled out the drawing Lily had made. It showed a stick figure child holding hands with a blurry, shadowy figure. The shadow had a smile drawn on it in crayon. At the bottom, in a child's unsteady letters, "Nice monster." Reed looked at the drawing for a long time. "She forgave you." "Yes. Can you forgive yourself?" "I'm working on it. Your daughter said sorry is important, that you try to be better." "I'm trying." Reed stood and extended his hand. "Then welcome to the team. We can use someone who knows how the bad guys think." They shook hands. Human custom. Strange but meaningful. Silence left the office with official approval pending, but confident it would be granted. They had turned against everything they knew, betrayed their own guild, fought their own kind. All because a 2-year-old human had pointed at them and called them a monster. She was right. They had been a monster, but monsters could change, could become protectors, could choose to defend instead of destroy. The galaxy was learning that lesson the hard way. Humans were teaching it one child at a time, teaching that strength came in many forms, that instinct mattered, that trust between parent and child was more powerful than any weapon, and teaching that sometimes the scariest monsters could become the best guardians. Silence walked through the station, no longer hiding, no longer hunting, just walking, just existing in normal space like a normal being. A child saw them in the corridor and waved. Silence waved back. It felt good. Being seen felt good. Maybe being known was better than being feared. Maybe protection was more satisfying than destruction. Maybe humanity's greatest power wasn't that their children could detect threats. Maybe it was that they could inspire even monsters to change.